Hello and welcome to the Safety Net. I'm your host, Stephen Bressler. Today we're going to discuss the Children's Advocacy Center in Norfolk County. There are approximately 750 children's advocacy centers in the United States. Ours is the Norfolk Advocates for Children. Briefly, children advocacy centers deal with allegations of child abuse and also provide education and training for schools, youth-serving agencies, and make available informational literature for parents and teens. To tell us more about Norfolk Advocates for Children, I am pleased to have with us Norfolk District Attorney Michael W. Morrissey and Norfolk Advocates for Children Executive Director Jessica Kelley. Michael Morrissey became Norfolk DA in 2010 after serving in both the Massachusetts House of Representatives and the State Senate. While in the legislature, he chaired 4 major committees, including the Committee on Public Safety. He was an early supporter and voted for the original Victim Bill of Rights for the recognition of the battered women's defense and supported services for domestic violence victims. He served on the Board of Directors for Domestic Violence Ended, also known as DOVE, in Quincy, while that organization was acquiring their first shelter building and continues to partner with them today. We in Brookline and the rest of Norfolk County are privileged to have Michael Morrissey as our district attorney. Jessica Kelley was a victim witness advocate, forensic interviewer, and commercial sexual exploitation of children case coordinator prior to her role as executive director. Jessica started with the Norfolk District Attorney's Office in 2011 and was hired as a victim witness advocate handling restraining orders and domestic violence cases in 2012. She received her master's in social work from Bridgewater State University in 2019. Welcome to you both. So who wants to start?
Great to be here. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you so much.
What is a children's advocacy center and how did we get to have one in Norfolk County?
Well, I'd say they've been around for 30 years, and Jessica can talk a little bit about the history of district attorney started a center in Alabama, which is kind of the hub of some of the ongoing network that Jess interacts with, on a regular basis. The National Association and certification, some of the training still occurs down in the Alabama area, but they developed what became known as the best practices, the national model of how you should treat victims and witnesses, people who are in distress or in complicated situations, especially younger people. And so over the years, I think Billy Keating, now the congressman, the former district attorney, started providing a different type of setting within the district attorney's office. And so, as you know, the district attorney's office is a brick and mortar building, and it's an office building. And so the better alternative, as seems, Bill Keating's vision was to create a freestanding, very warm, comforting place to invite people in to be able to receive treatment and/or help. And so the good news about the child advocacy centers is, if you think about it, and I know that I think we even sent a graphic before, but in the old days, if you had someone who may have been a victim, and the police would talk to them, then maybe the state police would talk to them, maybe DCF would talk to them, and the doctor would talk to them. And so you had multiple people, basically forcing the victim to relive the situation. The Child Advocacy Center provides an opportunity for people to come, one-stop shopping, integrated, multidisciplinary approach, where we have a lot of the professionals there. And you saw Jess's resume. It's funny that actually we missed in the resume was we found Jess because she was an intern in the office when she was in college, and we thought she had some talent, and obviously she's risen to the ranks and got her master's degree, so we're happy to keep her. I just should probably be looking for a raise next, but she's getting married, so I know she'll be looking for a raise. So Jess has worked from all the way from the ground all the way up and really understands the process. So I'm happy to have someone like that in the role. But when Billy Keating did it, he came into the office building. Wasn't quite the same. Now it's completely different. It's on the grounds of the old state hospital in Foxborough. It's a freestanding building, and we know that during the program, and hopefully Corbin will show some of the photos. The playground. The first thing you see is a playground when you drive up, and so we have interview rooms that they're kind of segregated from the rest of the facility, but they have, warm feeling. It doesn't look like, the lights on somewhere, like, tell us what happened, and it's not like that at all. It's actually a trained interviewer. And Jess, actually, you read her resume, was a forensic examiner. And so those are people who are trained to get the story. I mean, we just want one person who knows how to ask questions, not leading questions. We don't went there with a preconceived notion of this happened. We want the person to tell us what happened. And then they evaluate with the team, they evaluate whether they believe an event occurred, if someone was assaulted, or some of the issues that we may face going forward. And not every case that comes in the door, there's one of the things we're talking about, is it turns into a case. A lot of things that happen at the center, and I'll let Jess talk, we provide people help, counseling, assistance, direction. So maybe you can tell them a little bit about that part of the role.
Right, yeah. I mean, we have 5 forensic interviewers that work for the district attorney's office and conduct the forensic interviews at the NAC. And it is a child-friendly setting. We have a play structure when you come onto the site. We have a rock garden that we just created in April for Child Abuse Prevention Month. That's really warm and inviting when the child and their non-offending caregiver come to the site. The hallways are lined with artwork that were created by children in the community, and it's a really culturally sensitive facility as well. And the forensic interview room is upstairs. We have waiting areas for younger children and then teens.
Older, yeah.
Yeah, and
We have some photos that hopefully maybe we can integrate, later to show you exactly how, what it really looks like. It's hard sometimes to explain.
yeah, that would be great if we could show some photos. And then a forensic interview room where a child's able to talk to an interviewer one-on-one in this non-leading, trauma-informed way, so that we can elicit, facts from the child. And all the team members, the multidisciplinary team, we call it the MDT, they're able to watch the interview. So the goal is really to reduce any additional traumatization to the child by limiting the amount of times they have to talk about it. It's not to say that they wouldn't have to discuss it again, especially if it were to ever go to prosecution. But during the investigation, we have Department of Children and Families doing an investigation oftentimes, and then the police. We have medical professionals, mental health, victim advocates, assistant district attorneys that sit, and they're able to get the information at the same time from the child. The interviewer wears an earpiece too, so at the end of the interview, if they're forgetting to ask something that somebody needs to know, they're able to tell the interviewer that.
So just as you and I are talking and conversing closed circuit now, we have the ability to do that, as well as one-way window into the room, so they can actually sit, behind and not be seen by anybody else. And as Jess said, it's nice that the interviewer would wear an earpiece, and if at the end of the program, like if Corbin said to you, Steve, don't forget to ask Michael and Jess this question, and he could say, geez, what about this? So that happens too, and it's it's really, I think it's the best practices that have been developed, and they build on it each year. We try to adopt changes. They have a national accreditation process, and we have been through that. I think in my tenure, I've been through 3 times. And it's not fun, and Jess will tell you, but you have to meet certain minimum standards and provide certain services. So we have a lot of people we partner with, and everybody gets it's like a school accreditation. When you talk about the high schools getting accredited, well, they go through the same process where the team comes in and takes a look and say, okay, did you meet this, and this? And they go right through the types and kinds of services and who our community partners are and what type of work we do. So it's a challenge. It's the Advocates for Children. The center is a nonprofit 501c3 who we've raised money together with them and try to fund them. We supplement their operation through state funds and grants, and also we provide personnel from the district attorney's office to make the place run. And we hire people sometimes through grants and other sources. So it's a little bit of a challenge to keep running every once in a while, but it's an awesome place.
Jessica, what's a typical day like for you? at the center?
Sure. So every day, I mean, it depends on really what we have scheduled. More often than not, what's scheduled each day is a forensic interview that I had mentioned before. That's when the multidisciplinary team gets together on site. Even through the pandemic, we were having a lot of team members on site in different rooms. We're lucky to have the center that we have, so folks could Zoom in from different offices, and we were still able to bring the child on site to meet with the interviewer. We incorporated masks and different safety protocols. And so we conduct the forensic interview that day. The multidisciplinary team meets with the family member, the non-offending caregiver after the interview. The child has an opportunity to meet with our pediatric SANE nurse. She's a specialized nurse practitioner. She sits in as part of our team, and she has a medical suite on site. So she's able to do evidence collection, physical exams, even just meet with children, go over any questions that they might have following the allegation of abuse. And so a lot of days we'll have forensic interviews. Some days we'll just have children come on site for medical exams. And then, we work on
some counseling too. People come in for evaluation for other needs, so it may involve counseling.
Yep. So we have mental health coordinators that also they're staff of the Norfolk Advocates for Children. They sit in as part of our multidisciplinary team, and they connect with the caregivers, and they talk to them about, where the mental health field can be difficult to navigate with insurance issues and wait list issues. And so we're fortunate to have, it's over 25 agencies that we have linkage agreements with, and they're trained in trauma-informed treatment modalities that we can refer our kids and families to. So the mental health coordinators connect with the caregivers and make sure that they have appropriate referrals to get treatment to heal from the trauma.
What's your caseload?
So annually, we see about 800 referrals, and that's for child physical and sexual abuse, child neglect, witness to violence, and then commercial sexual exploitation, so CSEC cases. And then I would say about 75 cases annually end in forensic interviews.
And how do parents find out about you? Do they have to go through the schools or the court or the police department, or can they just walk in?
That's a good question, because that's probably our biggest challenge is we've seen the caseload go up over the years. Last year, maybe a little bit of an anomaly, because we think we rely upon some of our community partners, whether it's the medical community, the school community, some of the mandatory reporters, some of the state agencies, police departments, and some people who
Camp counselors, people who
nonprofits. I mean, so we try to build on the network and let people know that we're out there, and try to let people know that that not every case is going to end up in a prosecution either. That we can actually be a great resource to get people services, and we can provide some direction sometimes. We're always looking for adding a list of providers who have a lot of the Boston hospitals. I know we've been affiliated with Children's Hospital, with Mass General Hospital. So we have a pretty good stable of terrific providers that we're able to call upon. And the counselors try to, not that they may do direct services themselves, but they try to basically kind of push them in the right direction so that they can get the services from the type and kind of help they think they need.
Do you ever have walk-ins, parents or teenagers, say, who feel that they need to discuss their situation with you?
We don't typically have walk-ins, and where we have different interviews maybe going on a daily basis, it isn't usually a walk-in, but we'll get phone calls certainly from parents. We'll get phone calls from schools, different mental health agencies that might need help navigating a situation. I would say families, parents might hear from us about us, maybe through school trainings, things like that. If there's been a referral regarding their child, they could hear from us first or from the Department of Children and Families to discuss the services that we have
Yeah, even a
available.
local school or public schools, police department. I mean, there's just a variety, but it says, just said, you just don't know what's going on there day to day. So we do take calls, all the time, and I think there's a hotline, and so they will respond immediately. And then we will try to get people in as quick as possible. That was one of the challenges you heard her talk about during the pandemic. So some of our biggest referral locations would be the school system, the medical community in particular, some of the state agencies. And if they weren't out touching, and seeing the children and talking to them and reading the signs and identifying children who may be in need of some services, it's kind of hard to do that when you're only seeing a child a couple hours a day on Zoom. Or initially, a lot of Zoom took a while to get up and running for a lot of school systems. They were, doing things by a conference call. And so, and a lot of people, they talk about I know the medical community is reminding people, hey, listen, just because we had a pandemic doesn't mean that you shouldn't come in for your regular checkups and treatment. Don't put things off. And so the pandemic, created that much of a challenge for us, is to reach and identify those children. So we had to kind of adapt and overcome those situations and try to reach out in a different manner. So I can't tell you that we were 100% successful, but we're always open to ideas that people have, and we try to reach out to the community. One of the trainings, I think one of the most valuable trainings that they do, because it's not just services, but I think the education training component of what they do is important, and mandatory reporters. I know that when I first took office, people were concerned about clergy and sexual abuse and other issues involving the clergy. And we did some training for the religious community of all faiths to tell them, hey, we're here. You may hear from people who are part of your congregation or a parish, and part of it, the temple, the mosque. We have all faiths in Norfolk County, so we did have a good group of people from the religious community come and learn about what we can do. And some of it isn't, hey, we're not out to, prosecute what you have to prosecute, and get people help where they need the help. And so I think that's really one of the hallmarks of even the administration as district attorney. And I always tell people it's not about convicting someone, it's about getting the right answer. And that the right answer may be getting someone help and assistance and not getting prosecuted. And that's what Jess does every day. She tries to get the right answer for cases that should be pushed towards prosecution, get put to prosecution. And people who, 800 people and only 75 forensic exams, and even those that have forensic exams, they always don't end up in a prosecution setting either. So it's all fact dependent. It's all individual analysis. It's all on the backs of, just kind of coordinates. It's like the football team. You need a quarterback, and a lot of people with moving pieces, and so she kind of brings the moving pieces together and try to get the right answer.
As the fact that parents and say children have been together because of the pandemic, is that close proximity, that constant proximity because of the pandemic, do you think resulted in an increase in cases?
I mean, I think we've been, concerned throughout the pandemic for sure, because we know abuse didn't stop happening. We just know that, kids weren't in the community where mandated reporters can see them and can file the 51As. Like I had said, we have tried to continue to see kids in person as best we can. During the pandemic for forensic interviews, we think that, that's the national model for the
Best practices,
NDT and getting the kids in. They can meet with our nurse, meet with our team. And with trainings, we haven't been able to do them so much in person, but we have, switched to the virtual format. And in some ways, we've been able to access more school personnel because they can all join a Zoom, versus getting people in person. So last fall, we were able to reach a good number of school teachers and talk to them in nonprofits and medical providers. Our PDSA nurse does a number of trainings with different hospitals across the state. So really just to get out there and spread awareness and how to recognize this abuse and how to report it, how to file and how to respond.
We concerned not only about child abuse and other cases, but I think it also that transcends on the domestic violence side of the house too. We had to make some changes. This because the pandemic came, that didn't stop, domestic violence abuse and issues. And we were able to work through that, where initially if someone needed a restraining order, the courts were kind of closed for a little period of time. So people would go to the police station, and before the courts are, you talk about a horrendous place with no technology. They are the bottom of the pits. There's no Wi-Fi in the courthouses. And so their ability to adapt technologically, I think one of the good things hopefully that will come out of the pandemic for the courts is they've kind of done some things that they may not have been wanting to do. A lot of people's kind of stuck in their ways. I mean, when was the last time you and I ever thought we'd be doing a TV show by Zoom? You know what I mean? So, and you want to get the word out, and you want to stay active, and this is an opportunity, a great opportunity for us to talk to the community about the program. But on the domestic violence side of the house, we're able to get people restraining orders by conference call initially, and then it was upgraded to finally to Zoom calls, and then they were able to get people into the courthouse, on an emergency basis. So, you adapt and you move ahead. I mean, the hardest part is we haven't been able to, for a long time, we're not able to have a jury trial. That has set us back. We have a number of murders, 20, 25 murders backed up because getting 12 people into a room in a courthouse that really were not social distancing and air quality issues had been a problem. And so it's still a problem. So we're going to try our first murder case in September after 15, 16 months. So I know there's 3 murders scheduled for September and October, and I think probably even another one by the end of the year. So slowly but surely we'll deal with the backlog, and it's just not murder cases. They tend to get the most attention, but there's a lot of other issues, domestic, child abuse and stuff, the cases that we have to deal with as well that need attention. And we're working through that, but meeting and reaching the people that Jess has to work with has been a priority for her, not before the pandemic, and forced her to, everybody has to kind of change the way we do business.
The term mandated reporter has been mentioned several times on the show. For reviewers who might not be familiar with that term, can you tell us what's a mandated reporter? Who's a mandated reporter?
Sure. So by law, there are certain professions that are mandated to file reports of abuse and neglect with the Department of Children and Families, so Child Protective Services in Massachusetts. The report is called a 51A. So a mandated reporter, and there's several different professions that fall underneath that, but it is teachers, school personnel, coaches, clergy, medical professionals, mental health professionals, and others, police officers, EMTs, firemen, a lot of people that are on the front lines working with children, childcare.
Daycare, right? YMCA's. So anytime you have like a organized group and you could find children, they would fall under the guidelines. I mean, when the police, for instance, go into a house and they might find a situation of abuse, very bad abuse, or they could find drug dealing, and that would trigger if there was a young kids in there and people were selling or manufacturing or putting together, heroin and fentanyl for sale, that would trigger a notice to DCF to, hey, we went in there, they were, so they had a drug lab put together, there was young kids there, that will trigger the investigation. DCF would come in and do the investigation, and you kind of off to the races, essentially.
The initial referral would go in, yes, through DCF, and then we have that immediate coordinated response with the MDT.
What kind of educational material do you make available to parents and teens? I looked at your website and I saw that you do that.
Yeah, so our website is norfolkadvocatesforchildren.com. We have a number of different brochures in several different languages. I think we have up to 5 languages now on our site. We have a mandated reporter brochure that walks through people's responsibility as a mandated reporter, who are our mandated reporters, and kind of their next steps. We also have resources on there for parents, how to care for themselves, how to care for their children following an allegation of abuse. We also have information about what it's like to visit our center if a child and a non-offending caregiver are coming on site, and just about our facility in general and the work that we do as a multidisciplinary team. We have internet safety brochures as well, which has been a great resource for folks during the pandemic because, kids are online a lot more and predators are online as well. So we have been giving out a lot of those brochures as well during our trainings.
We do a lot of in-person, we have speakers programs, like Jess or others will go out and talk. The same nurse goes out into the medical community and reach people. If you had a group of people in Brookline that wanted to learn more about it, when I suppose times get a little bit better and more people can get together freer and we get this pandemic behind us, we like to meet live. It's much better interaction for people to see us and ask questions, but having not had a lot of opportunities to do that, we've just said, ironically, a lot of people may not be able to get to a live event have been able to take advantage of Zoom. So we probably had more trainings to smaller groups because you could do it, instead of like bringing in all the school nurses in Norfolk County, you could do it by Zoom, and so they don't have to leave the building they're in, and we still get the word out. And a lot of the trainings we do sometimes can provide continuing education credits for those professions that may also require ongoing education. So we try to do some things to encourage people to participate in our trainings as well, and to give them an advantage. But we think it's really word of mouth, and the internet is probably the biggest tools that we have that we use, and our community partners spreading the word.
Regarding the literature that the center has, have you thought about making it available at the libraries now that the libraries are opening? A lot of them have areas where you can pick up printed material.
That is a good idea. We should leave some at the library, and our goal is to get them out to different mental health agencies as well. And we work closely with the Quincy Family Resource Center. They participate in a lot of our CSEC task force and steering committees, and we've been able to give them some of these resources as well so that they can get them out to parents in the community.
We also try to deal with some of the people in the hospitality industry too. There's a lot of people in Norfolk County, and try to do some outreach to them to help have them help us identify people who may being put into very difficult situations and involved in human trafficking. So that's another challenge, and just it's been some time. I know that Mara Healy, the Attorney General, has made that a priority as well for administration. So we do work with the Attorney General on some of that issue as well. So it's we all working together. I mean, to try to get people all rowing in the same direction. Hope we can make a difference.
When you're having interviews with children or teenagers, are parents present during those interviews or not?
They're not, and for a couple of reasons. One is that the parent could then become a witness to the statements, and then the other is that a child might not want to be completely forthcoming if their parent is watching the interview. So we don't want to put that on the child, that they have to worry about what they're saying in front of their parent and their reaction to hearing it. So no, parents are they're not watching the interview, and they actually never will watch it.
Can you tell us again where in Foxborough you're located?
It's generally people are familiar with the old, when we had the state hospital system. There was one in Foxborough, which is now pretty much either redeveloped or torn down. And we were on the grounds of the old Foxborough Hospital, actually adjacent to not too far from the Foxborough Public Safety Center. So, it's on a little side street in Payson Road, and there's a residential development, nice condominium and apartment complex across the street, single family houses next to us and around us.
And the center looks like a home as well. Has a porch and a waiting area outside and a play structure next to it.
How are you funded?
We are
challenged. Yeah, well, I guess I would say, like, for instance, the Cape and Islands are fortunate, and they're one of the earlier child advocacy centers that they actually get county funds. We do get some state assistance through some of the positions. The district attorney's office supplements the workforce. just rights grants, a lot of grants we try to rely upon.
And that's AVOCA grants, the Victim of Crime Act grants, and we get funding from MACA, which is the Massachusetts Children's Alliance, and they are our state chapter in Massachusetts through NCA. So they also offer us funding, grant funding as well.
It's a 501c3 corporation, so we occasionally put together fundraisers, and we can take donations. The nonprofit, which has a whole separate board of directors, and they make sure that, for instance, that the mental health counselors aren't being funded by the district attorney's office. They want to maintain that independence and that firewall, so that they're free to offer advice, how they see fit, which is in the best interest of their clients, and not necessarily in the best interest of what a prosecutor may look at things. So they were telling me when the building was first built, there was a gentleman who had a Pella window distributor, and he donated all the windows. And then more recently, there was a local landscaper who basically became familiar with the center through an issue in his family, and wanted to do something to give back, and he put in a brick walkway. So some in-kind services, and some fundraising activities and grants. I mean, it's kind of a patchwork of the best we can. And as long as the pipelines, I know that the federal money has been most helpful, and passed down through the state, and we supplement it as well. I mean, I think we support some of their endeavors, like help with the maintenance costs, plowing the parking lot, things like that we contribute to that. So it's no single source, and always a struggle.
So if someone wanted to make a contribution to the center, write out a check, how would that process go?
Probably with Norfolk Advocates for Children, when they're 1545.
It's 12
12
Payson Road in Foxborough.
And it would go to the nonprofit. And I can't speak to the tax laws these days, as they have changed so much. I wish I could tell you that to the extent that it might be tax deductible, they are a 501c3 IRS identified corporation. So, but we could use the help, and we will welcome people's either work or donations, and it just makes life a little bit easier for all of us.
Do you have sufficient staff on board now, or could you really use additional folks?
Our staff right now is funded by AVOCA, a VOCA grant, and that's our mental health staff, because we do like to keep it separate from a prosecution in the DA's office. And the other staff members, the forensic interviewer, the victim witness advocate, and the ADA are staff members at the DA's office. And then, of course, the police and DCF are
Paid for by the
separate
police and
agency.
DCF,
Yeah.
right? So, I mean, I think a fear would be going forward with, I know the federal government has had some recent challenges with some of the monies that they provided to the various states with the pandemic, and the strain on the federal budget, I think, is going to come to a head sometime in the near future, and we hope that they recognize the need for continued federal assistance for some of the positions that are used for some people who find themselves in very, very difficult and dire straits situations that really kind of at a crossroads in their lives for many of these people. So that really need our input. So I hope that they recognize that and continue to fund it. But that's another battle, I think, in the near future.
Well, we're getting close to the end of the show. Is there anything that we haven't talked about yet that you feel you really want to get out there to our viewers?
No, we see the workload going up, and it's kind of like when I talk to the domestic violence community, they say, "Oh, there's so many cases," and that's kind of good news, because that means you're reaching people, and they're reaching, and you're getting the services. So we welcome obviously that. But so when you see the numbers climbing, it's on a good news, bad news story. I think we're doing a good job getting the word out, and I think we're reaching a lot of people. So we don't let the numbers bother us. We want to treat as many people as we can, and I know we appreciate the opportunity to come on to you today and talk a little bit about the good work that is done that people may have never heard of or know that we do. And it's not always prosecution related. We can get you help and assistance and give you some guidance, answer some questions, picking up the phone. So, take advantage of contacting the Norfolk Advocates for Children.
Jessica, any last words?
And just thank you so much for having us and helping us spread awareness about our center and the work that we do. We appreciate it.
Well, I tell you, it's been our pleasure. I found it most interesting, and I hope that our viewers throughout Norfolk County and beyond also will have learned something today about this very, very valuable resource and how the district attorney's office has helped make it as successful as it is. And Jessica, certainly having you as executive director, I'm sure has been a boon to the organization.
It's good news for me, I can tell you that. So,
well, thank you again for appearing on the show, and thank all of our viewers for watching The Safety Net.